Good morning. Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, I was
Ah.
looking at my screens. Hey, Robert, how are you?
Hi. Hi.
Hi, Robert. Do you guys need to connect and want me to drop off?
Nope, we always get on early, just us, you and Robert and I and Kathy. I think that'll be it, right? Be the four of us, Robert.
Yeah.
And then when we're ready, and on when the clock strikes 12, Robert will let everybody in the waiting room in. And we want to see the ticker go on. So first of all, you have any questions, any directions you want to ask Robert to help you with?
Quick question. Is it your intention that I share and drive, or you share and drive?
You can share your screen and run the slides.
Okay.
And then that poll that you sent, what you have, you had two slides on your presentation that are, I think if you link to these, if you follow that QR code,
Yes.
I think that it's supposed to update automatically
Right.
on the next slide. So I don't need to do a poll.
Yeah. You
I don't need to
shouldn't.
do the Zoom poll. So it should
Right.
just work off your slides.
Okay.
So I mean,
And
if
if
it
it
doesn't,
doesn't, it's not a big deal.
yeah.
It's more a
I haven't
curiosity.
added the question, but I mean I can add it real quick, but if that's the case. So
Well, let's give it a whirl here and make sure that I'm sharing the right thing. Now, what are you guys seeing? Are you seeing my
whole thing, with all your slides across the bottom?
Okay.
And I'll probably share my screen first, just do two slides, introduce you, and then I'll turn it over to you. But I'm watching, and then I'll try mine to make sure mine is going through perfect.
Okay. How about now? What are you seeing?
The wonderful screen, as you would want it.
Oh, okay. So
yeah.
you're not seeing my notes and thumbnails.
Yep.
No.
Oh, okay. So if I do it, so either way I do it, you're seeing the same thing.
That way we see your other slides.
Oh, okay.
And your thumbnail.
Okay. It's a mystery to me, I'll tell you. Okay.
Beautiful. That's a beautiful place. Is that tall building back the University of Colorado Hospital, or?
So that is what we call Building 500. It's, the CU campus, the new medical campus, was built on an old Army base.
Oh.
Fitzsimmons Army base. And that's the old Fitzsimmons Hospital. It was the Army hospital.
Oh.
And it's ancient and it's vintage and antique. I mean to tell you, when I walk in there, right now it's our admin building, but you can feel the old spirits in there, the old soldiers and veterans, and everything is tile and ceramic and sterile and it's palpable.
Wow.
The history in that building. So I just love that building, but all the rest of the campus is new, and it has Children's Hospital, the University Hospital, as well as a VA, the Rocky Mountain VA.
Wow.
On the campus. So
and where's school? And where's the school?
So those red brick buildings are primarily the College of Medicine, College of Nursing, College of Pharmacy, social work, physical therapy.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. All of the red brick is the new academic buildings. Yeah.
And just point which direction is the hospital itself, the new hospital.
Let's see.
And on my right-hand side.
I would say the far left tower.
This
The far left tower, I think, is where you'll see the new university hospital. New. Now it's about 20 years old, but
wow,
new.
beautiful. Beautiful. Well, if it's okay, let me share my screen and see if I can share my slides so I can see if they will progress, you know. And Robert, you know what I did this week is I actually went to my Geek Squad and had them clean my computer, fix everything. Google changed the way you do Google Hangout, and I couldn't share my screen, and it was because they changed the whole thing. It wasn't me, and that's what got me into the Geek Squad. And then he showed me that there's a new way to share your screen with Google. They just changed it. Nobody and my school goes, well, we're not charged Google.
Kept it a best kept secret, right?
Yes, they did. And I'm in the middle of my first class, and there you go. I can't share my screen. I'm like, why can't I share my screen? Where's the button? Where's the window? Okay, so let me share my screen. Okay, and okay, see, here we go. Okay, I think this is it. Okay, share. All right, good deal. Let's do it again. Okay. Okay. All right, let me go back to making this window open again. Resize my window. Okay. Okay. All right, how do I resize my window there, Robert?
If you go to slideshow.
Self rename. Okay, let me stop sharing. Maybe that's what I have to do first. Okay, and now, okay, now I'm in my view. So I'm going to go to share screen again. Rob was being patient with me. I can see. Okay, and is it, yeah, it's screen 2, right? Can you can't see my screen, right?
No, we see it.
You actually see my screen?
See your screen, but it's not in slideshow mode.
Okay, yeah, that part okay. And then what I'll do is but see on my screen, I don't see it. I see it over here on the other screen.
See that? Yeah, that's what I had to monkey around with. So to do both on one on each monitor, I had to downsize both of them.
Okay, let me put it in my my view. Okay, so view, and then I'll go to my there it is. Okay, now you can see it, right?
Yep.
You just see this screen with the Association for Nursing Leadership, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So okay, Robert, it looks like it's going pretty good. Okay. Is it okay if I keep mine up while we wait for everybody to come?
Works for me.
Okay, and then I'll stop sharing, and then you can take over. Robert, is that okay? You're okay. I see the thumbs up. I was wondering why you weren't talking. I thought you were bad. Okay. So what's the weather like right now in Colorado?
Oh, it's beautiful. We've finally broken our nasty heat wave that was just kind of toasting us all. So yesterday it was like high 70s. It was just beautiful, just gorgeous. And today I think it's going to be up into the 80s, but really pleasant. How about you? Wait, Laura, where are you?
I'm in Georgia, so we are having the heat wave. And how about
Oh my gosh, yes, I've been hearing about it's actually the whole East Coast, isn't it?
And yeah, right across even Texas. So, it's
yeah,
the whole Southeast. Yes.
Yeah.
And we're still not out of it yet. We had 2 days at the end of last week where it went down to the 70s, mid 70s. And we thought, oh, fall is here.
Right.
Back up.
Yeah. You got all excited for nothing, right?
Yeah, exactly. Although my family still lives, well, my family does live, they're going to say they're in New Hampshire, and my sister was out there last week. She lives in Connecticut, and she said it was 50 degrees when she woke up in the morning visiting. 50.
See.
It's,
Well,
it went back up, but I mean, they're already showing their signs of, of spring and fall. I mean, fall totally coming with winter.
yeah,
Fine.
we can get tastes of that by going to the mountains,
Mhm.
but you have to go to the mountains to get
Yeah.
that drop. But they're starting to see. In fact, I just was on my ski website yesterday, and they were talking about where was it? Utah? Was it Utah or Jackson Hole had their first dusting
Oh,
of
I
snow?
didn't.
And so they were making predictions around when the Colorado Rockies would see their first dusting.
Wow.
And it remains to be seen, but I'm ready to start skiing again. So
I'm scared. My family is, but I'm not. I never liked the winter sports. I mean, I did do some cross country, but only because my kids were doing it. But otherwise, as soon as they launched, I was like, I put those things away.
how many kids do you have?
Two. I have two adults. Yeah, two young adults. 30. David's 31 and Sarah's 35.
And grandchildren?
Huh? Oh,
Grandchildren?
my Sarah has I have two little grandchildren. They're tiny,
Nice.
but that's wonderful. How about you?
Nice. I have 3 and 1 on the way.
Ooh.
My daughter is due at the end of October, but
Oh,
I'll tell you, she was doing a lot of contracting yesterday. She's an infection prevention coordinator and had a super long day, and boy, her belly was tight. And I'm thinking, I don't know that this baby's gonna hold off all the way to the end of October. That's 2 more months. But hopefully it'll cook a little bit longer. So
well, good luck. Now, you know what? Can I practice one more thing? After I go out of here and I stop sharing, and I give the screen back to you, then I would just go back to here and pick this one and then start sharing again, right? Is that correct? Did I do it right?
Yep.
Okay. I want to okay. So I'm going to leave that there because I just
Yep.
want to make sure, Kathy, I went to the Geek Squad this week, on Monday, actually, the holiday, and had them clean my computer, check everything out because Google Hangout changed the way that they allow screen sharing, and I couldn't find where do I share my screen. And but keep talking. That was my
I'm
machine.
glad. I know because you've had so many glitches with it, not just
Hi,
with this,
Kathy.
but just in general. Hey, Shelley.
Yeah. Well, I also had them check my network and stuff like that. So I had a different team looking at that. I had AT&T looking at that. And I've got this app that I can go on every floor of my house and it tells me where I'm a brownout or where I have a good signal and a poor signal.
Sure.
The
That's
lowest
good.
Handy.
the lowest signal is in my office. And so I got a booster and it's big white little, it looks just like a tower. Anyway, long short is that I did, I have it right next to the computer. I mean, it's like 2 yards away and it's helping, but the bottom line is he said that I maybe need to get a different one because that one's not working well. So I do have the lowest in this room, but it's the only place I can set up for my computer with my Vera desk and, an office, So that is my next step now that I isolated that, but it's a cute it's a cute app. It tells me, when I'm going to, where my signal is and everything. Now, can you hear me okay? Because my student this morning said it was a little low.
No,
I
it's
hear you
fine.
just fine.
Okay, good.
Hey, Laura, if you wouldn't mind backing out and let me do the same thing to make sure that I'm selecting the right view.
Yeah.
When I go to
That looks good.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
okay, so you're not seeing the
Nope. The thumbnail
thumbnail.
thing.
Okay, perfect.
See, on
And-
my screen, I have my whole screen. It doesn't even have this on now, so.
And Shelley, Robert knows, Robert, you know when to put the poll in, or?
Yeah, and what we concluded is he probably won't even need to because I embedded poll everywhere. So,
Oh, okay.
but
Good.
I'm not that savvy with it, frankly. And so, and if it doesn't work, it's no biggie. It's one question. It's really for my curiosity more than anything. So, no big deal.
Well, I always just hand that over to Robert, and I really should learn or do it myself, because Robert, what if he's at a meeting and I have to run the webinar and somebody needs a poll? I'll be like, Laura, help me.
Yeah, and it's almost one of those things that I think the people that are most successful with it are those that have used it consistently, like in a teaching forum, where in lots of different classrooms, in lots of different technological setups and stuff, they know how to adapt. And I just haven't done
Well,
that.
it becomes
So
second
those-
nature. Look at how we all had to learn Zoom, just the screen share alone. And now it's a piece of cake,
Yeah.
so.
And yet I still forget to unmute myself.
Oh,
You
that
know, I'll start
everybody does
talking
that.
and-
Yeah.
I'm
And
gonna run and grab one more cup of coffee. I'll be right back.
Okay, sure.
And I'm gonna go back to sharing my screen, so the screen's up, Kathy.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah,
And-
that's fine, Laura. And
Yeah.
Laura, you got I sent you the wrong agenda. I'm so embarrassed. I'm like,
And that's okay. It was like after 9 or something like that, and I was on my porch and it was already dark and I'm still chipping away there. And I said to myself this morning when I woke up, I wonder if I was looking at the wrong email. I said to Kathy,
oh.
it was on my note to say, Kathy, I'm really sorry. I think I saw the wrong email last night.
Well, and then so this morning I went and I looked at it. I'm like, did I not save it? So I titled it differently. And I thought I'm just going to step away for a little bit and then I'll check it after the webinar one more time. But I do want to email Susie. I don't want her to be blindsided by it. Just I'm sure she'll be more than happy to give an update and what do you need from us, but I don't think she wants to give too much away of the reception. I think she wants people to be wowed, and I can understand why. They're really, really putting something.
Oh,
Amazing.
Maria is such a hostess. She is. I went to her last year at our conference. I went to her reception that she gave to Pat and 2 of her other faculty that won awards. It wasn't at ASN, it was at AONL in May. And she did everything. They brought in the hors d'oeuvres, but she decorated everything. She put up things. She brought things from the school. She hosted the whole thing. It was like, she didn't stand back and she's the dean and everybody else was fluttering around, including the photographer. Nope, she was doing it all. She's really a very sweet lady. She really
Very
is.
nice person. Yeah, I
Very
think
nice. Very
this-
nice.
what they're going to do, I think, is going to set a precedence for other hosts.
That would be nice.
Well, because I look at what they're planning, and then Texas, it's always bigger in Texas. So
Well, we'll see. I know we just got a couple more minutes, but I just wanted to ask you one more thing. Have you thought of some new dates for September?
yes, in fact, the hotel got back to us. Angela had suggested doing the last week of September, the 26th, 27th, and 28th of 24. They have that available. And then the first week of October, the 3, 4, 5 of 2024. So both those are available. I want to look over because there's some things in the contract, like the food and beverage was really high. And Robert and I need to look over that and renegotiate that. But the September dates, the hotel room was $199. The October dates, they jumped to $215.
That would be good. The only thing in October 24 is that this year, now I don't know if the NLN will do it next year, but this year they're planning a faculty essentials workshop on the 25th or the 27th in Baltimore, Maryland. I will tell you, our faculty is a captive audience about the essentials.
And that's September of 2024.
Yeah. So if there's any way we can find out whether they're going to do something,
who would know?
Joan, the essential coordinator. So do you want me to see if I can contact her and say I'm planning a big conference? We just need to know if there's any chance. Okay, I'm going to do that and get right back to you. I'll do that today.
Okay.
I'll copy you on it. But there is a new essentials coordinator, because if they have something like that at the same time as our conference, it will definitely pull
Yeah.
faculty.
Yeah, I understand. And I'd like to go with those September dates
I
because
do
of the
too.
room rate, you know,
I do too.
honestly. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other conferences start October 12th, and so it'd be good to give people a week between, you know
In
what I
between.
mean?
Right.
So let me just check that, because I just I mean, we just may have to, I don't know, I'm nervous, but I'm nervous.
Well, just check it because I mean, we could, you know, there's other dates too.
Well, the week before would also be an option, right?
Right, right.
But let me check and see what I can learn. I'll copy you on the email, and I'm going to be quiet, ready to start our conference. So you just tell me, how are we doing for what's in the room? Oh, we only got 4. Oh, that's because you haven't let everybody in.
I've got about 1 minute. So Robert, how many people are there? Because I think we had a total of
There's 11 right now.
28. Okay. Well, we've got
Yeah,
another.
I think it was like 20. Well, it would be, yeah, 28, including all of
Okay,
us.
do you want to wait 2 more minutes?
Yeah, I
Whatever
have
you
that. We
want, I
still
can-
have a minute. So
Okay, good. Let's wait 2 more minutes, because I'd rather us get the next wave because before Shelley starts, and I tell you, we're all jumping from one sign on to another. I honestly think this fall is just as busy as, you know, we left off, I gotta say. Like there was no summer. Right?
it did
Yes.
go by quickly.
It always goes way too quickly. And it doesn't matter if you're 9 months or 12 months, you're still
Yeah,
working way too much.
exactly. May I also ask, Robert, when my screen is up right now, do I just show, or do we all show? How does that work?
What do you mean?
I mean, in terms of view, I imagine I was going to turn my camera off when Shelley speaks. But I mean, how right now, when they come in, will they just see the screen, Association for Nursing Leadership, or when I
I mean,
start?
they can see like if you see us on the side or on
Yes.
top, they'll see all that.
Yeah, it depends on how the
I'm not
gallery
sure
is
whether
set
their
up.
cameras will be on or not, but I'm gonna admit everybody.
Okay, ready. Okay, we're ready. And Shelley, I'll be taking notes for you, okay?
Oh, great. Thank
I
you.
will watch the chat.
Perfect. Thanks.
Okay, so it is 12 o'clock. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Laura Karamonica. I am the chair for the Conference Planning Committee for the Association for Leadership Science in Nursing. And just a word about our organization. It's an international organization dedicated to uniting both academe and practice leaders to shape leadership science and education in nursing. See? One more time now, making it go. Give me 1 second. Okay.
It worked just a minute ago.
I know. Okay, let's see. Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead, and if it's okay, I'll do your introduction, Shelley. Everybody saw the beautiful display that we had for you, and as they signed up for our conference. So, with a little technical glitch here, let me just introduce you to Dr. Shelley Fisher. She is a nurse leader, educator, and researcher with a passion for understanding leadership's influence on patient safety. Specifically, she examines the relationship between leader behavior and patient safety outcomes. With more than 35 years as a nurse leader and a decade in nursing research, Dr. Fisher's recent work has included the development of topology of factors that influence the safety climate to include shared decision-making, staffing decisions, and other characteristics of safety-specific transformational leadership. Borrowed from the industries of transportation and manufacturing, this innovation holds significant potential for teaching current and future leaders how to prioritize patient safety. This conference has no conflicts of interest, and this is also, you will get one CEE for this conference. After the conference, you will receive the survey. We ask that you complete the survey, and once you do that, you will be able to download your certificate. Okay, so again, I'm now going to turn the conference over to Dr. Fisher.
Thank you, Laura. It's so fun to see so many friendly faces on here that I know and love and look forward to seeing soon at the conference coming up. Did I select the right screen? Great. Good morning, everybody. I'm in Colorado, so it's still morning here. I'm Shelley Fisher. I'm the Associate Professor and Specialty Director for the Nursing Graduate Leadership Programs at the University of Colorado. And before we get started, I wanted to share with you, kind of help you step into my headspace a little bit around the scholarly work that I've been doing. I want to explain my why, what brought me to leadership and safety science. So I had been in nurse leader roles for about 25-ish years. As many of you, I had been a nurse manager, a director, clinical nurse specialist. I was a director of nursing before the term chief nursing officer had evolved, just to date myself a little bit. And over the course of that 25 years-ish, I had been in many different organizations and had the opportunity to experience, even though most of them I would say were well above average in terms of quality of care that they delivered on the whole, I observed many different cultures. And I always sort of mused over how is it that these cultures affect quality and safety outcomes. I consider safety to be a subset of quality. And when I talk about safety culture, I'm talking about the way we do safety around here, or where safety fits in the context of, many different competing interests and priorities. And I became very interested in terms of how leaders make a difference. How do they create a culture? How do they sustain a culture? Or how do they change a culture when it needs to be improved or shifted? I found myself in a world-class organization, and I had taken on a project that I knew would last about 5 years before it was put together enough to hand off for maintenance. It was a startup. And in that setting, I experienced some things, even though it was world-class, I experienced a culture that was very different than what I had seen in the past. And it created for me a lot of moral distress. And I was confronted with a value structure that really flew in the face of my own personal and professional values, especially around patient safety. what I experienced was a culture that valued status quo, one that valued deference to seniority and power, in contrast to grassroots and authentic, true quality care, and most importantly, patient safety. And so what did that do? That ramped up my passion around patient safety, and it created in me a deep need to really understand, how is it that some cultures seem to just happen, whereas less constructive and effective cultures can't seem to be changed. So I needed to know. So what I'm sharing with you today is really my scholarly work and my continually evolving understanding of safety-specific transformational leadership, how leaders influence the culture of safety within an organization. So hang with me. We'll have time to discuss at the end, and I really value this pool of expertise that you all present. And so I will hope to hear from you at the tail end of this and get some feedback and comments around where I'm headed with this work. Well, and now mine's. There we go. So today, I'll introduce safety-specific transformational leadership, which is a mouthful, and I may indulge your patience if I rely on SSTFL as an acronym, because we love acronyms in healthcare, as I move through this. But I'll introduce it in the context of healthcare as an evidence-based leadership style and competency that holds great potential for helping address our staff and patient safety challenges. We know that staff safety and patient safety are inextricably linked. So when I talk about safety culture, it really is including our patient safety outcomes as well as our staff safety outcomes, which is really important for workforce at this juncture. My hope is that you'll leave this session with an understanding of its value and to nursing leadership, practice, education, and research. So to begin, this is for my curiosity. I would love for you to share with me your familiarity with the term safety-specific transformational leadership. If you scan the QR code with your phone, it will take you to a site where you can answer one question, one polling question. Either that, or you can text to 22333. And I'll give everybody just a minute to get there. Grab your phone and get there. Are you familiar with safety-specific transformational leadership in healthcare? Either A, yes, I practice it. B, I've heard the term, but I'm not really familiar with it. Or C, nope. Hopefully I activated it.
Shirley, I'm having a hard time getting the poll up.
Okay. it likely is user error on,
Hold on, I can launch it here.
oh, good. Okay, thank you, Robert. So am I the only one seeing the poll responses, or you?
No, I see the poll now. It looks like, you know, the majority of us have not really heard of this term, and some of us have, and well, we've got a couple of experts in the audience.
Yay. Well, y'all are the ones that I'm going to be relying on to hear from at the tail end of this. Thank you for responding to that and sharing with me that it, as I believed, most, even those who are pretty familiar with leadership science, are not familiar with the term. And that's for good reason, really. As I mentioned, there's a foundation for the science supporting safety-specific transformational leadership in healthcare, but it is very new. There's only a couple of healthcare-based studies that have used SSTFL as a foundation for their study in healthcare. However, it's very common. There's a lot of research in other industries. So I'll talk more about that in terms of the work that I've done. First, I started with a study. It was a Delphi, using a modified Delphi technique. I assembled a panel of 25 international authors, researchers, and safety thought leaders, and conducted a 3-round modified Delphi. What those folks did was reached consensus to develop a typology of the factors that influence transformational leadership and safety culture. So what they did was not only agreed on, from evidence, from research, what are the factors, the mediating and moderating factors in that relationship between leadership and safety culture. And then they organized them into categories, and then they also posed hypotheses around which mediated and which moderated and which probably did both. So now we're waiting for the testing for those factors to be developed, or those factors to be tested, and the relationship to actually be tested. Most important to my work right now are the 2 categories of leadership behaviors and priorities, which had 3 subsections, and organizational processes that had 4 subsections. And I'll go into these in detail in a little bit, because what this typology really represents then are the things that leaders do that have a significant influence on safety culture, which in essence is what translates into the behaviors and characteristics, as well as the structures and processes for safety-specific transformational leadership. So backing up a little bit, what exactly is safety-specific transformational leadership? As I was working on the literature, I did a deep dive into the literature for the Delphi study, but then as I worked more with the literature, I kept running into this term, safety-specific transformational leadership, because my exploration had taken me into other industries, other high-risk industries, such as aviation, nuclear power, warehousing, oil and gas. And what I learned was they have a word for exactly what I was trying to wrestle with in healthcare. And so I came to the need for a concept derivation. I used Walker and Avant's method of deriving the concept, safety-specific transformational leadership, or borrowing it from these other high-risk industries and dropping it into healthcare. And according to Walker and Avant, in order to do that, basically what you're doing is borrowing from a parent field that has studied it and applied it in their domains, and then you're redefining it through the process of concept derivation. So according to Walker and Avant, you conduct a comprehensive literature review, which I had already embarked on. You look deeply into how the concept is used in other fields, and you select, you really find the meaning and the common usage of the term in other fields. And then in the context of the field that you're moving it into, in this case, healthcare, it's important to redefine the concept and make sure that there's an application, appropriate application, and that the initial meaning made from the term in other industries applies and transfers to the field that you're bringing the concept into. So, touch my notes up here. What I found from the literature in other fields was that safety-specific transformational leadership that had been researched in oil and gas, transportation, chemical manufacturing, and warehousing was significantly associated with safety-related performance, occupational injury and workplace safety, safety voice, mindful safety practices, safety climate, and interestingly, productivity. You know, in healthcare, we oftentimes think that safety and productivity are competing interests or competing priorities, and they are to some degree. But research that was done in these other fields actually suggested that they're not as competing or mutually exclusive as originally thought. There can be simultaneously a strong safety culture and a strong prioritization of safety, while at the same time, a high value placed on productivity. And I'm kind of going with that notion. I think any of us that have been in nursing leadership and management roles for any period of time see the conundrum and have experienced the conundrum of trying to drive our productivity and our financial outcomes, while at the same time safeguarding, making sure that we have adequate staffing to protect patient safety. But we've also, probably many of you have experienced how when nurses are not productive enough, when our staffing is too high, it seems, and I don't have the research to support this yet, but it seems that that's when errors occur as well. So it's not a direct relationship necessarily, unless and until the staffing challenges are extreme or really long-standing. So there's my little tangent, but back to the research and the conceptual clarity around the use of the term safety-specific transformational leadership. So in my exploration of these other industries, what I found was some conceptual flaws to their research method. We know that it's really important when you're testing a concept, especially as a latent variable, it's really important that we have an operational definition for the term. And that should be an operational definition that is based in conceptual work. And it should be tested, and it should be broadly evaluated by experts at a minimum, and then moved into research, rigorous systematic testing of the concept. And what a number of researchers, actually there was one researcher at the outset that started studying safety-specific transformational leadership in warehousing and oil and gas. And that researcher took the transformational leadership definition and just kind of plopped it into safety-specific transformational leadership. And there wasn't the conceptual work done around the operational definition for the term. The other conceptual flaw, my opinion, to this previous research in other industries was that there was not a measure developed specific to and operation using the operational definition that was solid and tested. They took the multi-factor leadership questionnaire, which is the usual, well, there are a number of measures for transformational leadership, but the MLQ is a common one for measuring transformational leadership. Well, they took the 10 items for transformational leadership from this full range leadership theory questionnaire and modified them to make them safety specific, and then just used it rather than developing an instrument and going through all of the instrumentation steps and the psychometric testing to develop an instrument true to the concept itself. So because of those two reasons, I maintain that the existing research in those other industries could be improved. And when we bring it into healthcare, it's important for us to make sure that we close those gaps. What I found also is that differentiating, there is a difference between transformational leadership and safety-specific transformational leadership, which is why it's so important that we pay some attention to the development of an operational definition as well as an instrument that is tested, psychometrically tested for validity and reliability of the new concept itself. We know that the two SSTFL and transformational leadership are positively correlated, but there's also evidence to suggest that there are different and even opposing influences on safety outcomes between the two concepts. Well, we know that actually both of them inspire and motivate followers, but when we're working with transformational leadership without the context of safety specific or safety prioritized transformational leadership, it depends what topic the leader is focusing on and prioritizing and driving and inspiring and motivating leaders to pursue. So if that's safety, then it becomes safety-specific transformational leadership. If it's something else, say, for example, that there is a focus on productivity to the exclusion of patient safety, Let's say that the transformational leader is really zeroing in on developing followers that prioritize productivity and workload and financial outcomes at all costs. Then likely that's the culture that will be developed, and those are the outcomes that will result from that transformational leadership. So you can see then that that could be actually contradictory to safety outcomes related to safety-specific transformational leadership. Once again, the concept should be defined and measured separately. So, from the work of the typology development as well as the concept derivation, a new operational definition emerges. And that is safety-specific transformational leadership is an integrative style of leadership, as well as a set of competencies. So it's a style and a set of competencies. And what we know is that it can be taught. That in contrast to some of the notions of trait theory and so forth, that leaders are born. We know that this is competency driven and it can be taught. It's identified by an enthusiastic, emotionally mature, visionary, courageous, lifelong learner who, here's the kicker, inspires and motivates safety consciousness, culture, and performance. In my work with transformational leadership, I conducted a concept analysis some time ago, and one of the things that was disturbing to me in that work was that the operational definition zeroed in on what it does, what transformational leaders do, rather than what they truly are. So what you'll notice in this definition that differs from transformational leadership is that there is a focus on what is the safety-specific transformational leader, as well as the influence that it has and what it does. In terms of the competencies, I mentioned that it's not just a style, it's also a set of competencies. Emotional intelligence, and this comes from the literature work. Emotional intelligence, which includes situational awareness, communication, collaboration, coaching, mentoring, and very importantly, an integral knowledge of safety science and its implications on practice, education, and research. So these are the competencies that we need to develop in people, our followers, or our leadership team, if we're aiming to really develop safety-specific transformational leaders, which in turn then develop the safety culture, which we know translates into improved safety outcomes. So let's back up to the typology. Remember, we talked about there's two broad categories that I'm zeroing in on for this work, and the development of an instrument to measure safety-specific transformational leadership. The two categories were leadership behaviors and priorities, and the second one was organizational processes. So there was a lot of discussion among the expert panel around how to label the communication goals for the safety-specific transformational leader. And the top 3 bullet points: honest/trustworthy, proactively transparent, bidirectional, and inclusive, were the labels that were settled upon by the experts. Importantly, there was a lot of discussion around authentic, whether or not that should be included in the typology as a descriptor for the communication style and characteristics that are employed. The reason that it was not included in the typology was because at that time anyway, and I think this is still true, there was not any way to measure authentic communication. They felt as though it could not be quantified or defined, and it was more of an idealistic goal or something that was quite subjective. Whereas they felt as though honest, trustworthy, proactively transparent, meaning that the leader does not wait until the word gets out or there's discussion on the street about an issue. The leader intentionally upfront is transparent about what's happening in the organization or maybe errors that were made. There's openness, intentional and proactive openness from the leader to the followers, to the organization at large. And consistent with what we're aiming for these days with our diversity, equity, and inclusion goals, the communication from the leader goes in both directions. There's as much input from the grassroots as there is output or top-down type communication among the leaders and the followers in the organization. And language that is used by the leader, the safety-specific transformational leader, is inclusive in nature. It's we-oriented. It is consistently all about, we may have different contributions to our patient care and our goals, but that doesn't mean that our contributions, anyone's, are better or worse than. The effort is made to level the playing field by way of the language that is used. So those were the communication goals labeled by the expert panel. In terms of the next category, leadership commitment to safety. Here's where, when we talk about especially culture development or culture influence, this is where I struggled. How do leaders really change culture? How does culture get developed? Well, largely, I concluded, it happens by way of who the leader is, but even more importantly, the structures and processes that the leaders put into place, and then the behaviors that they engage in that reinforce the culture that the structures and the processes drive. So very visible to staff throughout a healthcare organization is how resources get allocated. This is probably one of the best communicators of what really matters in an organization, is where the money goes. Where the money goes is what reflects the priorities of an organization. So when leaders allocate resources to safety programs, the message goes out to the staff that safety in this organization, safety matters. That's a method or a mechanism for leaders prioritizing safety. They conduct frequent executive walk rounds. Now that's a trademarked term by Frankel and his crew back some years. They created a method for safety specific walk rounds and did research around how leaders influence safety by way of their rounding. And what they learned is that it needs to be purpose driven. It needs to, those walk rounds, that rounding content needs to zero in on safety. And we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. Some of the elements of rounding that are so important to make sure that it's driving a culture, a strong culture of safety. Safety-specific transformational leaders safeguard staff and physician mental and physical health. Now more than ever do we know how important well-being, provider and staff well-being is to our outcomes. And the leaders balance productivity expectations with safety expectations. They are not mutually exclusive. They can't be. It's like many other competing interests and priorities. There's a balance to be struck, but safety is always included as part of the discussion. And then finally, in this category, leadership support and empowerment. So again, talking about how does a culture of shared decision-making happen? In my experience, most often, leaders build in to their systems structures and processes that drive a culture of shared decision-making, usually employing structures like shared leadership or shared governance, different labels for very similar things, in order to engage staff in that and provide them with the forums and the mechanisms for engaging and adding their voice to decisions around hospital or healthcare setting affairs. It's how to promote grassroots involvement. So transformational leaders that are focused on developing a strong culture of safety actively promote grassroots involvement and staff control over their practice. Oftentimes, not only with shared leadership structures and processes, but the whole notion of autonomy in practice, structural empowerment, maybe having a role that focuses exclusively on developing and promoting and engaging professional practice among the nursing staff in particular. And that's also a way to communicate caring and concern for staff and their satisfaction. We know that nursing satisfaction is clearly tied and linked with control over practice and engagement and opportunity to engage in decision-making around organizational affairs. And we all know as well that providing coaching and feedback, helping staff develop personally and professionally, communicates caring and support. The leader that cares enough to take the time and energy and often discomfort to provide feedback, especially when it's constructive feedback to staff, also communicates caring and support. On to the next category of organizational processes. And again, a reminder that culture is driven typically by structures and processes being put into place by the leader. So it all ties together, attitudes, behaviors, characteristics, as well as what the choices and decisions that leaders make around competing interests and priorities. Those are the things that set the stage for safety culture, or where safety fits in our myriad of priorities in a healthcare organization. Safety-specific transformational leaders organize staff and patients with safety in mind. And here's where there's a bit of a rub that comes. We know that sometimes optimizing placement of patients and placement of nurses for efficiency and financial outcomes can challenge safety outcomes. So how do we wrestle with those competing interests? How do we float nurses within their area of expertise, or challenging them to function outside their area of expertise where they may not be as safe a practitioner? How are we doing that? The leadership decision-making around that sends very strong messages to staff. Not to say that some nurse is better than no nurse, that holds true. But how are we doing it? Are we setting up a different delivery of care system on those days where we are so challenged that we are forced to move a staff nurse from one area to an area where maybe they're not as proficient? Are we buddying them, literally pairing them with another nurse that has that clinical expertise? So it's not, there's nothing black and white in our world, right? We live in the gray. So how are we doing those things to manage the competing interests and priorities? But again, always safety is part of the discussion, and a very important part of the discussion. So we admit patients to appropriate clinical areas. How do we do that? If the ICU is full, how do we manage that care in such a way? It's not a black and white thing. Can we set up a very similar delivery of care, a one-to-one assignment on a unit that has adequate supports and resources? As soon as leaders are consistently factoring in safety as a priority in all of this decision making, and it's verbalized, the decision making and the critical thinking is verbalized during the huddles, sends a very strong message to staff about the priority of safety in the culture. Promoting psychological safety. This was a really important element, and even now, you know, the work previous was done before the pandemic. Now it's ubiquitous, it's pervasive. We know that psychological well-being, psychological safety is inextricably tied to our safety outcomes. Peer review processes, you know, we've had them in place for medical staff for a very long time. But in many organizations, especially smaller organizations, it's still an evolving concept for nursing staff and other disciplines outside of the medical staff. And yet we know that it's important for staff support. It's an important element of adopting and reinforcing a just culture that is so important to promoting psychological safety at work and in the professional environment in healthcare. Leaders that reward and recognize safety behaviors also are promoting a strong safety culture. Embedding high reliability organization concepts. HRO, as a refresher, are high reliability organizations are those that operate in complex, high hazard domains for extended periods without serious accidents or catastrophic failures. And the concepts linked to the development of a high reliability organization include a lot of the things that we've talked about already. Preoccupation with failure. So the view that a near miss actually is an opportunity to improve rather than a success. We didn't make the error, therefore, hey, we're getting there. No, it's a mindset of, gosh, we need to take a deeper dive and keep looking at this. Reluctance to simplify interpretations. So an acceptance that our work in healthcare and in patient care is complex, and the expectation that any moment now it could fail in a new and unexpected way. So keeping our antenna up, looking for the next place that a patient will be injured or a next scenario, and trying to mitigate that and prevent it before it occurs. Sensitivity to operations. There's a heightened awareness to the state of all of the relevant systems and processes that we've been talking about. A deference to expertise, not unlike the first story that I shared with you, rather than deferring to power, people in the key leadership roles, or deferring to seniority, the guys that have been around the longest. Instead, deferring to clinical expertise. Listen to the guys that carry the expertise, regardless of how long they've been there or their position or role. A commitment to resilience. So we're prioritizing and sustaining emergency training, not resting on our laurels, even for those things that are unlikely, but still possible failures. And collective mindfulness. Some of the literature includes mindfulness. Some of the more recent HRO literature includes mindfulness. We know that it's an important element. It ties to the psychological safety and the well-being in order to be mindful of safety. And finally, educating and orienting to safety principles. Interestingly, this was also a point of controversy and a lot of discussion among the expert panel in terms of how to really describe the education, training, and orientation. But what's most important is that organizations, leaders that are really focused on developing a strong culture of safety, make sure that vertically as well as horizontally, there is a solid understanding of safety science from the governing board to the frontline staff. There's a solid understanding of safety science, complexity, and how it influences the work that we do, which in turn then influences our outcomes, our staff and patient safety outcomes. So if we're not knowledgeable of safety and how it influences our work, as well as how our work produces those outcomes, it's really difficult for us to work as a team to achieve those safety outcomes for staff as well as patients. So to bring safety-specific transformational leadership to life, I created a case study that compares and contrasts leadership approaches frequently seen in healthcare, and I think it'll ring some bells for you, when faced with an adverse outcome. So here's the
May I just interrupt for a quick second and say we have about 5 or 7 more minutes. So, and I know you said you wanted to get some of our audience to be able to participate just a little. So if you can make this part a little shorter, we'll get some questions. We have a few on the floor. Thank you.
Okay.
All
Well,
right.
now we have 15 minutes for questions at
Actually end at 1. So
oh my goodness.
it's okay.
My timer is off. Thank you. You know what? I think I'm going to move through that. I'm glad you mentioned it and brought that to my attention, because my timer says I'm only at 40 minutes. So I'm going to move through that. Speaking of rounding strengths, It's important that we're consistent without being rigid. We're connecting, again, horizontally as well as vertically. We are solution oriented, starting with safety concerns, listening first about safety concerns, and then summarizing with a follow-up list. So what I heard and what I'm going to do about it, and a communication that leadership owns patient and staff safety and expects that staff does as well. So I'm going to pause there. Laura, I think most importantly, I'd like to hear from the group. What questions do you have? And what comments do you have? What's your take on adopting and embracing safety-specific transformational leadership in healthcare? You can either raise your hand or put a question in the chat.
Andrea, did we answer your question about the safety structure of the safety rounds? I know Dr. Betsy Frank gave you some suggestions too about staff actually joining the rounds with the leader, and definitely closing the loop and letting the staff know that as a result of their questions and concerns, certain actions happened.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
That's a great idea. Thank you.
Oh, and I see you've authored an article in the June issue of Nurse Leader. So for those of you that I know, like me, want to hear a lot more about this, let's check out the June issue of Nurse Leader, because Dr. Fisher's article on this is in there. So it's perfect timing. We booked you before that.
Well, let me wrap with the future work, because I would really love to engage you and your expertise in this work. I have a project that's been funded to develop the instrumentation, the instrument itself, to measure safety-specific transformational leadership. Right now, I'm generating an item pool, and then I'll be doing the content review, the expert review. That's where y'all come in. And we'll develop we'll establish dimensionality, and then do the initial reliability testing. Ultimately, we'll move it to large-scale psychometric testing. And my request to you is, if you'd be willing to serve as a content expert for the instrument, the initial item development, please put your name in the chat so I can follow up with you. What I'll do is share more detail with you around the need, and you can decide at that point whether you want to commit to doing that or not. Other comments, questions?
Thank you so much, Dr. Fisher. What I'm going to do now is just close with a few items to remind everybody about, but please continue to put your name in the chat. I think Dr. Fisher really would love it if she could get some content experts, and you guys all have that. So this is a wonderful tool that I think we need, and it's new work for me. I'm very familiar with the MLQ leadership tool, but how they translated that included the safety language. Really interested in learning more about that. And that, in fact, you also identifying that we have to make some more rigor in these tools and not just apply them. So can I try to share? If you'll unshare, or whoever's doing the screen, do you want to pull up mine, or do you want me to try? Okay, well, I'll try. Let's see if my It'll work. Let's see. Okay, so let me tell you what I'd like to make sure you all know, that our conference is just less than 2 months away. We're so excited. We're partnering with the University of Alabama in Birmingham, and so Dr. Shirey's team, and we are starting the conference with 2 fabulous pre-workshops. One is improving nurse well-being, which we talked about today, and this is really going to be a fabulous workshop. And Dr. Patrician, who has won the research award from AOLNL last year, or this year rather, in May, actually is facilitating this. Is a HRSA grant that she got, and she's going to be having her team of experts also be with her to help bring this information and workshop forward. So you'll want to consider that. The second workshop, I know this is really hard to choose from, but it's from practice to politics. It's developing a political competency to advance nursing. Dr. Lindsay Harris is Robert Wood Johnson Policy Fellow and Legislative Fellow with Representative Lauren Underwood, and she is actually going to facilitate that workshop with Dr. Eileen Meyer. So again, these 2 workshops are the first day of our conference. You can attend the workshop, so get your students. If they can't attend the whole conference, which we'd love you to attend the whole conference, but if you can't, you can see these workshops and attend those. And I apologize, but I'm pressing advance. I'm going to need your little help on that. Okay. And I don't know why it does this, but it won't advance. So let me stop sharing and have and Kathy help me with that. Okay, so my second thing to share with everyone is right here. Yes, okay. The other thing that we're doing this year is different. We're having a fabulous international discussion panel on the morning of the last day, and it's on the international dilemmas and ethical struggles with diversity, equity, inclusion, and I'm sure justice. Our moderator will be none other than Dr. Rose Sherman, and her panelists will be Dr. Maria Shirey, Dr. Peter Presloli, and Dr. Sonia Uded. Dr. Uded is from Canada. Peter is an international nurse leader. He is now, leading the international traveling nursing, and but has a world known about what he's learned about nursing in all very many countries and cultures. And so last but not least, a word on where our conference is again. Registration is open. There's still room in the hotel, but those things do change. So it's time to register. It's time to book your hotel. We will be in Birmingham, October 28th through 30th. Our conference is, ends at around noon. And I just hope you will come and hear from amazing speakers on building leaders for an equitable and inclusive future. Thank you all for joining us today. And thank you, Dr. Fisher, for a fabulous presentation on a fresh new topic. And we're looking forward to learning more from you. Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.